Good morning on what is a cool, bright and windy day. It is Thursday the 23rd of March and I've got a nice hot cup of tea and a parcel to unbox. It's a fairly heavy one. Let's find out what I've got in here. So just get the knife and the tape. There we go. And what I've got in here, I forgot about this, is this. Which is, well, it's DeGenesis, the Rebirth edition, and it's a German role-playing game called, basically two books in here, so I'm going to pull out the, that keeps being reprinted, and it's been printed in English once, and it's a fantastic, and it's another post-apocalyptic setting that is really, really weird and wonderful, but to my mind, never got the rule set it kind of deserved. The rule set does kind of never quite works for it. Doesn't really give the player characters a sort of a lot of ability. So, I'm going to do the first book, which is Primal Punk, and in the beginning, it says there was no light. And inside we have a map of the future Europa in this setting. And weirdly, it opens up with a quote from Mae West: "If you only live once, but if you don't do it right once, but if you live only once, but if you do it right, once is enough." Which kind of, I mean, my first grumble would be that doesn't quite run up against my experience with the previous edition of the game, because it was difficult to even do it right with the mechanics. But anyway, so there is a review of that on my blog. So this is actually published by SIXMOREVODKA, which is quite an odd name for a publisher. So here we've got the contents page. So if you just see, show that to strength. It's a fairly chunky, heavy book. And then we open up with quite a dark piece of art, and the Jackal's Prophecy. And we have, you know, essentially the idea here of things falling, collapsing, failing, degrading as a result of the apocalypse. Yes, with quite an emphasis up on the skull motif here, and then ultimately survival, with radical equipment. And then we get into the actual Primal Punk. You know, we even have a character there with the third eye open. So, in colour fiction. And then an explanation of what DeGenesis is. It as the static eschaton, that's what they called the end of the world, the day when fire rained from the heavens, burning the land, scorching the people. The planet trembled, leaving in a pain like a feverish person in agony. Even though Earth endured, it was forever changed. So we've got an explanation of what a role-playing game is, what the core background is with this. And then forward. So essentially, you know, it's taking you through step by step from the stages of the disaster itself, the eschaton, and forward into the new world. And I say it's a really nicely done book. It is not fantastically laid out, clean appearance, fantastic artwork. And then we get a discussion of Homo DeGenesis, essentially how man has been changed by the disaster. You know, so and it depends where you're from. You know, it might be biokinesis with pollen, Franca, Ferromancy in the Balkans, Dushan, you know, which is dealing with strange creatures, kraken, jellyfish, and crawfish. Hybrispania, pre-Gnosticism, who are able to exist in the past and future simultaneously. Pugar, psychokinesis, essentially. So here there are the sort of like the strange abilities that have been have come about because of that change in the genetics of mankind. Come about because psychovores have been delivered into the Earth's mantle by asteroids, setting up a discordance and so on. Excuse me. So we've got a discussion then essentially of the different regions, just an overview, an introduction. The books will go into greater depth of each of the areas, and then you also have connected to that 13 broad cults. For example, Helvetics are the Brotherhood of Arms, and they reside in tunnels and bunkers in what was once Switzerland. The Scrappers dig for dirt. The Neo-Libyans are conquerors of the world. Essentially, the Neo-Libyans are sort of like almost merchants and sort of like a cargo cult, bringing their treasures throughout, and you play a merchant, primarily a merchant or an accountant, you know, an armed accountant working for them. So yeah, you've got numerous different cults you can be a member of, almost sort of like I would say you would go back to White Wolf, sort of like, you know, 13 cults or 13 different vampire strains. And then we have the big threat, sort of like on the ground, is the Marauders, and more. So when we look at essentially, then we start looking at the cultures. You do have quite a lot of information, a lot of background in here. Stardust. And then we begin to look at the individual countries, regions. So Borka, so I'm going to flip through here. Franca, so on. So this is really the book is talking about the general background, the sort of background for the players, and
So here we've got this discussion of the various areas like Aquitaine, Stukov Desert, and the connecting sort of like there's a giant crater called Janus, and sort of that lies between what was the continent of Europe and Britain. So it's now connected by land, even if it's a crater. Pollen, Eternal Wanderers. Essentially taking on the powers given by the new plants which has grown. And we have one of those fantastic craters. There's some absolutely fantastic artwork in here. Volcan. So I'm just flipping through because there's quite a lot to see in here in terms of artwork. But I mean, just sort of like you're just getting a feel for it and the look. It's difficult to kind of extract things from the text. Hybrispania, talking about the bridge across the Strait of Gibraltar, and Castile and so on. And in each section, you do have this section of general beliefs and hatreds, general ones, and essentially they're kind of like the cultural, sort of pervasive cultural views. There's no reason why your player character has to adhere to those. Their guidance. Pugare. So it's roughly, I was suggesting Italy, what's left of Italy. Then we get to Africa. This is the Lion Rampart, and as I recall in this setting, Africa, especially North Africa, is the new power. It's really growing, it's important, it's powerful, and it kind of inverts that traditional relationship, and I think that's an interesting thing to do. We have images of the pyramids there, but again, noticeably, if you have a look at the image of the pyramids there, the landscape has changed. No longer desert. It has been, its water has been supplied to it, so it is. The land is fertile again. So then we get into the cults. So again, just like it was dealing with sort of like the different cultures, now we're dealing with the cults. And you've got things like dealing with what they know, secrets, and so on. And you've got the different ranks. So you've got the game information there. So this is really all kind of, so far, all what this is generally, this is background. This is priming the game setup, and then we have stereotypes. And much like the hates and beliefs for the cultures, what you have here, these are the stereotypical views that one cult has of another. Omniscient chroniclers. And again, you've sort of essentially got another view, summary view there. Before you have ranks and stereotypes. So I'm just going to show you the generally sort of like the other groups. We've got the Helvetics. We'll just flip through. Judges. And there's the codex for the judges. And the other thing is that you've got also, you do have some NPCs at the end of each section as well. Some atypical kind of judges that you could, encounter as an NPC. Clanners. Scrappers. And the other thing is essentially what you've got in each of them. Essentially, you've got the name of the scrappers. Then you've got sort of like their nicknames. So here you've got the dirt diggers. So thoroughly, I mean, this is a really lovely looking book. These are the Neo-Libyans, and that's a fantastic piece of artwork. Do like that. It's really kind of captures sort of like it is very macho. It's very sort of like imposing and powerful. It's almost Lions of Africa. I am taking the role up that you once had. It's Avengers of the Dark Continent, the Scourgers. Essentially, not just hand-to-hand warriors. We have Rogue Warriors 2. Keepers of the Prophecy, Nubians. So just flipping through the pages. So this is all background material, just setting everything up. The Jemhamadians. So you have quite a large number of cults from North Africa. So they almost have their own sort of like you have their own sort of like family of cults, as well as those in New Europa. Laws of Desires, the Apocalyptics. And Anabaptists, Torchbearers in Paradise. Vault crawlers, palers. Those have been brought up in vaults. Explore the vaults where humanity attempted to survive, sealed in against the Eschaton. Then we get on to history. So, and then the Spore Reign. This is from the Spitlands, the Spitalians archives, their reports on it, and we've got basically a timeline which runs from 2073 through to, let's have a look, 2595, and we have a discussion of the New World Order as it is, with new documentation, and even have a different take upon that, I think. Another timeline, so you've got a couple of comparisons of different views there. That's going to be interesting to compare. It's just so. So that goes up to the same kind of date, and that's it really. And then essentially we have protectorate of an area of Franca, Borca, and an area suffering known as the Black Lung, and that is Primal Punk. The first book in the DeGenesis Rebirth edition. And I have to say, just from that book, that's an awful lot of background, and it looks great. Honestly, this book, the Primal Punk is a lovely looking book, lots of fantastic artwork. This is going to be an interesting thing to dig into if I can get a chance. Be interesting to see what they've done with the rules, which are I'm going to be presuming are going to be in this book with his catharsis. See whether they really made any changes, or ultimately what you just do is you go, I love this world, I love this background, I'm going to run it in something else. But DeGenesis, there is of course a history of role-playing games from countries, whose first language is not English, make it into the English-speaking hobby. We have to remember, of course, that the role-playing hobby is dominated by English. It's primarily an American hobby, then led by the UK, and even the big publishers. If they are big publishers, big enough to publish in the UK, in the US and UK markets, they're publishing in English. So obviously, Free League is the prime example. And in a lot of cases, what will happen is a publisher will take the role-play game they published in their own language, whether it's German or French, and publish it in English, or they will find a partner to publish it in English, and that goes the other way as too. And DeGenesis is one of those role-playing games that's sort of like German role-playing game, which isn't really very well known. To be fair, there really aren't very many German role-playing games that have come across, and really, how can I put it? I caught a lot of people's notice. The Third Eye is the big German role-playing game, but that's got an edition, but never really got any further than that couple of editions. And I think DeGenesis is kind of the same situation. It's a bit too niche for the English-speaking market, and this is would have been quite an expensive purchase at the time. Glad I managed to get a copy myself. And I think probably the best-known role-playing game to come out of a non-English-speaking market, you would look at things like Nephilim from Chaosium, trying to think. God, I can't remember the name. It's the Steve Jackson games, sort of like the Angels and Demons role-playing game, Devils role-playing game. That because I can remember the cover, and also just trying to think what else. Mutant Chronicles from Sweden as well. So there aren't that many that have sort of like made it on, got more than wider notice than that. We tend to. It's not a case of that we're insular when it comes to role-playing games from other countries. It's more a case of we just have an awful lot of choice in terms of what we can play and what we can run. We are really, we are spoiled for choice. But sometimes it is actually worth tracking down some of these foreign language, originally foreign language role-playing games, to see what other cultures and other countries and their hobbies think of role-playing, and think of what they can do. And the great thing is, it's sort of like, is to see those authors' approaches to a role-playing genre and a setting that they can come up with. Some of them are absolutely fantastic and really interesting, and worth looking at because they're just different and interesting. So it is, I think, with DeGenesis. If you can find a copy, worth looking at for just an incredibly different and interesting background that subverts a kind of lot of kind of storytelling elements and background tropes and so on. Anyway, that's DeGenesis Rebirth edition, and just the Primal Punk part. I'll do another unboxing of the second book very soon. In the meantime, thanks again for watching another unboxing of the Nook. If you've enjoyed this,
please do click on the like button down below, just so basically down below, because this is quite a heavy book. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings and Nook, where you will see me with a box containing a book or game which I'll unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. In the meantime, thanks again for watching another unboxing the Nook. Be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.